Hey everyone. So I'm about to make a blog post because I love, I'm an artist and I always tell kids why I love science and writing was I was just always so fascinated by everyone else's careers as well and all their discoveries and the information that they put out there. And I just keep finding more and more cool things to design worksheets from. So this week I was talking to a forager master out in Bedford County. And what I was discussing with him was like, really though, there's so many mushrooms that are popping up this time of year. I love on YouTube how they keep talking about other places along mostly trails, not in your neighborhoods, that have mushrooms pop up. But autumn, the beginning of autumn, is like that magical season where just mushrooms are popping up everywhere. And if you don't know what I mean, I've been glass jarring, tomato sauce is well loved in this family, and afterwards it is used for so many things. And I think this is a great idea to put them in glass because of the spores, and also just the fact that they'll start breaking down pretty quickly if you don't put anything else in the base. But I wanted these to be like observation jars that we could draw and look at these mushrooms and their how their veins look, how their gills look, how their root systems work. Also, it's really cool because sometimes if you get out there fast enough after it rains, you can even see the spores before they actually get formed all the way into mushrooms. In case you didn't know, too, the fun part about this time of year is also when you can find jack-o'-lantern mushrooms. Now, I know this is a jack-o'-lantern mushroom because of the spores. The edible ones that you're probably thinking of that are very close to this one, which I fail to pronunciate that one's name, but read this article and it will tell you. So if you're like me, big words, I'm like hitting them on Google speech on how to pronunciate so many new words. But one thing that's really important is with the jack-o'-lantern mushroom is getting to look at the spores. And this one does have dark spores in the middle. Some of the edible ones you're thinking of don't have that. Before I get into like how do I know that this one's not edible, I will go into the fact that this article that I'm going to be sharing with the worksheets is great. But one thing to do is after you go outside is just let your kid have fun and pick the mushrooms. So step one, pick the mushrooms. After that portion, what I did is bring them inside after we did our clippings. And what we did is then I read this article on everything you can find from Forager Chef. So if you've been obsessed with edible mushrooms like lion's mane and so forth, you really love this article. I won't ruin it the same, but jack-o'-lanterns are a beautiful mushroom. They are not for eating. They're gorgeous. They pop up in local neighborhoods and other places, and it's a really neat mushroom to look at. But the most important things is there is a chanterelle mushroom, and it is edible, but there are differences. And one of the things that he will point out is especially the spores and how the gills differ, which is really important to help teach your little learner how we know what's toxic and what's not. So for especially my kiddo in kindergarten through first grade, science is really important to start talking about identification, characteristics, and the family genres for so many different books are at the library, honestly, with just animals, telling the differences between them, compare and contrast between alligators and crocodiles. Here in America, we have a lot of species that it's just like, whoa, these live in the same place. Or we have platypuses and talking a lot about poison in it, but it's also a mammal and it's also laying eggs at the same time are really fun scientific conversations you can have with your kid. And there's so many topics for the whole year. So as a homeschooling parent, it's really, really fun to take my time and design note-taking skills with my daughter while also learning about new things together. Um, I do recommend this article. This one's really great, but I actually do have some videos and things I'm going to share after I am done looking at the videos. And this was just step one for me was to first do a little bit of research before I took my little learner out. So this part you don't have to do with your learner. I would do look at this, know what you're looking for, the coloring and things like that, and then go out and start your clipping. So this is the perfect time of year if you have not been doing mushroom studies or scientific journaling because your learner maybe wasn't interested in drawing flowers or talking about gardening or composting. This is a really good time of year to get out there. So if you are in the southwestern part of Virginia, especially, we are in mushroom season. The beginning of autumn is just a different species level of what you can find. And it's a lot of fun because I think the colors. So if you thought you're talking to your learner about the leaves are turning different colors was going to be a boring talk, and you already did it last year for science. That one thing is you could talk about this year would be mushrooms, because mushrooms are also the next thing to start really ramping it up when it comes to colors. So one fun one to do with the autumn mushrooms is to talk to your learner about the environment and climate of why certain mushrooms pop up in West Virginia or certain mushrooms only pop up in the southern regions of the United States. Um, it's the damp, wet, and cool conditions that it takes for some of these mushrooms to pop up in the autumn. And this is also the time of year your neighbors probably, just like me, were knocking down dead trees. There's probably a lot of stumps in your neighborhood along your walks. If you're in areas where there's a lot of dead trees, you can look on the sides of those. So pretty much those are the homes that you want to really look for, as well as some mushrooms that really do prefer the soil after it has very moist and makes it easy for the spores to attach themselves and start growing. Another thing that I also noticed was that the cluster ones start popping up in early autumn. Don't ask me if there's a fancier term. I just call them clusters because they're growing right on top of each other and they look like a bouquet of mushrooms all together. So for this project that I'm designing these worksheets and compare and contrast ones with, is you can do some scientific journaling, just go outside and start identifying the homes and things like that. Another really cool thing that I added onto mine was the living creatures that are involved with mushroom systems as well. And so there's a lot of opportunities to draw. And if you have a young learner like mine, that really helps them attach to their work and memorize all the information that they are trying to download and sponge up. And art's just one of those great note-taking ways of helping them to remember characteristics and certain details they notice while they're outside. And it's a quick way of noting things, not full-blown sentences. Keywords. Just focus on the keywords. So one of these things that I also was designing with these projects was the jack-o'-lantern mushroom starts popping up around this time of year. And if you're not familiar, you're gonna really love that article and the video I attached, because they are the big, bright orange and yellow. And that is one of the key things of how you know you're looking at jack-o'-lantern. They're ginormous. They're not edible. They are toxic, which is also why you should be doing this lesson. That if you want to make sure you're educating your learner about toxic plants that are not edible to eat, this is one of the big ones. You have the opportunity to do a comparison between that and a chanterelle mushroom. And again, always go to Google and ask it how to pronunciate something. Do not rely on me for that. I am also going off the fact that I made a keyword list with my learner of how do you identify them. And one of the most important parts that I start with again is local woods and neighborhoods have this plant in them. They are about 8 inches in diameter, so it is a big cluster you're looking for, and there's usually more than one once you find one. If there's a lot of dead trees and stumps, I would definitely be checking around them, and also maybe even look for some of the edible mushrooms that also like the same conditions. One of the big things about the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, though, is it's bioluminescent. It glows. So it's a really fun project to take indoors, put it in a little Ziploc bag, and they said it only takes about a few minutes if you want to put them in a closet. If you don't feel comfortable picking it, what you could do is, if this is a part of your walk, note where it is, and maybe in the evening, go back when the sun's dropped a little bit more and see if it's glowing then. So a lot of fun. That way your little learner can run around finding the glow in the dark. So if your kid loves fireflies, they're probably going to really love this project too. That being said too, is another thing to look at is the gills underneath it. So this is an opportunity for them to flip that plant upside down, look at the root system, look at how it's attached to the ground, the shapes it has, the tubular systems, and point those all out. And the gills, you can literally pluck them with your thumb and pull them apart. I am not an expert on mushrooms at all, just an enthusiast who loves looking for them. And I love sharing all the resources to keep me and my learners safe while we are looking at all these mushrooms. I already mentioned before too that if you look at a lot of these ones, colors matter. So the spores is one of the ways you can identify a jack-o'-lantern mushroom and make sure it is not a chanterelle that you can confuse them with very easily. So size, color, as well as the shapes help you identify them, which is why this is such an important art and science lesson. I'm looking at my notes now too that I almost forgot how it feels. So then you can bring up texture with your learner. So it should feel a lot like flesh, it says, when you rub your fingers. So maybe bring some hand sanitizer if you're far from your house. But touching it will also let you know what kind of mushroom you're dealing with, because some mushrooms are very dry while others can be very wet. Some crumble up very easily, and others look like they kind of already have separate parts that look completely different, or even like they're wearing a little mini skirt or something on the under part. Some look hairy, some have warts. So a lot of fun with drawing that you can have just by going out and drawing all the different types of autumn mushrooms that are out there. Again, I don't know all the mushrooms that grow in this area. I was mind blown when I went to a meeting just to listen to a local expert. So if you want to add a field trip onto this lesson, this is a huge opportunity to do so. There are usually foraging classes in your area for your local parks and recs. There might even be a local expert who is giving talks at a local university. So this is a really great opportunity to go also take them to a lecture or go to one of these demonstrations to get them educated about mushrooms. I know we did, and there was a ton I didn't know, and so it was good to know because I just usually familiarized myself with plants that were hazardous in my own backyard, which is also pretty helpful. So you're familiar with talks about poison oak, poison ivy, or that's a hornet's nest. All those are really important lessons, but there's usually more information we could talk about, like why mosquitoes bite some people than others, and so forth. This is a really good opportunity to add a lot of observations to your studies and just take a nice walk outside. If you're like me, we hate the heat, so we're taking full advantage and learning as much as we can about the outdoors while we're having these lovely temperatures. And this is usually the start of the season when colors start to change on the trees. So you can literally just from a window start doing observations as well. I'm already starting to see some yellow on my green trees, seeing some burgundy leaves coming in. So it's a really good opportunity. And also, if you're into gardening, further steps you could take if you really needed it would be, what are you harvesting this year? I'll get back to that because I actually do have some pumpkin arts and crafts to talk about them. But I have been really looking forward to this season. It is like my favorite time of year to be designing art projects for us learners who like to incorporate science, music, arts, and writing and anything else we can shove in there. So I hope you have fun with this project and add your own twist to it. So I know I had also spoke briefly about just, safety, keeping them inside of something like a lid. That way you can do your observations in your home if you don't want to sit outside and do these like on your porch or something with a thing of tea. So this is a good way of looking at them. And also if you do the glow part or the glow test, you can do that. You can also, if your learner is practicing writing, do some notes on autumn mushrooms and identifications, like the things that are going to be on the worksheet. But you can definitely just look at the worksheet that I'll post and answer the questions inside of your book. Answer maybe what do these words mean, like bioluminescent, what are gills? We did a lot of other fun sketches, as you can see on all my pages. Chicken of the woods. Also, I think we have like, where are we at? Pop balls. We also have a lot of carloids, comb tooth, hedgehog. A lot of these are the edible ones. But of course, we did do a little bit of notes about safety and clusters and other keywords to describe some of these. And then, of course, jack-o'-lantern in comparison with the chanterelles that they get confused with. That being said, I really, really hope that you got like a composition, a handy dandy notebook, and a pencil. Going to sound like Blue's Clues over here, but that's really the basic to just doing observation practice with your learner. Just writing down what we see, what we hear, what we feel at the moment, taking in the present observation, and then taking those notes, and then going by for a row. I wonder what this means. I wonder what this is. Oh, I just remember something. Let me write something more. It gets them into that mindset and that routine of it's okay to pause, take some time to research, ask questions, and do things to help us memorize. You don't need to store everything up here, which is really great. That being said, I really, really hope that you got like a composition, a handy dandy notebook, and a pencil. Going to sound like Blue's Clues over here, but that's really the basic to just doing observation practice with your learner. Just writing down what we see, what we hear, what we feel at the moment, taking in the present observation, and then taking those notes, and then going by for a row. I wonder what this means. I wonder what this is. Oh, I just remember something. Let me write something more. It gets them into that mindset and that routine of it's okay to pause, take some time to research, ask questions, and do things to help us memorize. You don't need to store everything up here, which is really great, especially if you're talking to students who have now neurodivergent issues going, or like me, I just memorize things better when I put it down on paper than I do when I put it in my digital calendar as well. So that being said too, I do find that this is also great because composition books are one of the number one objects that we all grab up around the school year. So I really love that this is a cost efficient project to do at home as well. And it really gives you an excuse to break out those colorful markers and crayons if they haven't been used yet. Again, I'm designing an entire sheet that just guides you through this project. So I will also be putting in some other ones that I have fun scientific subject matters that are fun to draw, eat, and dive into with your younger learner. And again, I hope this is just a stepping stone. There is a lot of information about mushrooms out there. So one thing I would definitely suggest is that you can probably find lots of experts classes in your areas. I would suggest going to foraging classes, finding other experts, and getting more information to be well informed. This project is definitely not encouraging to eat mushrooms. Mushrooms, depending on who you are, the toxicity levels can mess with you. So definitely do all your research. And this isn't a project where you have to eat the mushrooms. They're really just fun to look at them, find the creatures that are living within them. There's a lot of things just to observe and feel and experience. But I look forward to seeing you again soon, and thanks, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you really like this video and the project ideas. And if you have any that I ought to try with my learner, feel free to comment those below.